I was cheated out of dignity by my wife's family. They made me sit alone during our vacation dinner. I couldn't shake the feeling that this trip was going to be something special, something that would pull us all together as a family. Me, Clarissa, and her whole crew. Her dad, Gregory, her mom, Marilyn, and her little sister, Nora, who could do no wrong in their eyes, were headed to Cape Haven, a gorgeous coastal town I'd only seen in pictures. The oceanfront resort we booked promised luxury, relaxation, and maybe a chance to finally feel like I belonged with them. I'd been married to Clarissa for 2 years, but her family always kept me at arm's length, like I was some guy they hadn't quite decided to trust yet. This trip, though, I figured it'd be different. I packed my bags with hope, imagining long dinners where we'd laugh, share stories, and maybe even bond a little. The drive down was smooth, Clarissa humming along to the radio while I pictured us all sitting by the water, the sun setting, me finally breaking through their walls. When we pulled up to the resort, the salty air hit me first, then the sound of waves crashing against the shore. It was perfect. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and chandeliers, and I felt a swell of pride knowing I'd chipped in big to make this happen. We checked in, dropped our bags, and headed to dinner. The waiter led us through the restaurant, all fancy white tablecloths and soft music, to a long table set for the group. I was grinning, ready to pull out a chair next to Clarissa, when Gregory's voice cut through the air like a dull knife. "He needs his own table," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. I froze, my hand still on the chair. I looked at him, waiting for the punchline, because surely this was a joke, right? His face didn't crack a smile. Marilyn kept her eyes on her menu, like I wasn't even there. Nora smirked a little, and Clarissa, my wife, the woman who's supposed to have my back, just stared at her hands. I laughed, a short, awkward sound, thinking maybe I'd misheard. "What?" I said, still standing there like an idiot. Gregory waved his hand toward a small table in the corner, 10 feet away, like it was no big deal. "Over there," he said, his tone flat, final. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something, anything, but the silence was heavy. The waiter shifted uncomfortably, holding a stack of menus, clearly unsure what to do. My chest tightened, and I felt my face heat up. Was this really happening? I'd driven 6 hours, paid for half this damn trip, and now I was being shoved aside like some unwanted guest. I thought about arguing, about planting myself right next to Clarissa anyway, but the way they all just sat there, Gregory with his smug chin up, Marilyn pretending I didn't exist, Nora sipping her water like this was normal, made me feel small. I swallowed hard, grabbed my jacket off the chair, and walked over to the little table in the corner. The waiter followed, mumbling an apology as he set a menu down in front of me. I sat there, staring at the words on the page, not reading a damn thing, while their voices drifted over. Laughter, clinking glasses, the sound of a family I wasn't part of. I kept glancing at Clarissa, waiting for her to look my way, to wave me over, to fix this. She didn't. She just picked at her salad, nodding along to whatever her dad was saying. My stomach twisted, but I ordered anyway, a steak, rare, because at least I could enjoy something tonight. The food came fast and I cut into it, chewing slowly, tasting nothing but bitterness. They were over there, toasting, probably to some family memory I'd never be part of, while I sat alone, the ocean view mocking me through the window. I kept telling myself it was a misunderstanding, that tomorrow would be better, that this was just a weird first-night thing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. This wasn't a welcome, this was a message, and I was starting to hear it loud and clear. By the time the check came, I didn't even bother looking up. I paid my share, alone, of course, and walked back to the room without a word. Clarissa didn't say anything when she climbed into bed later, just turned off the light like nothing had happened. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell we got here. This was supposed to bring us closer, but all I felt was the distance growing, a gap I wasn't sure I could cross. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd figure it out. Tomorrow I'd make it right. But even as I drifted off, that little table in the corner stuck in my mind, a sharp reminder that maybe I didn't belong here at all. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my gut, replaying last night over and over, like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. Gregory's voice, "He needs his own table," kept echoing in my head, and the way Clarissa just sat there doing nothing stung worse than I wanted to admit. I rolled over in bed, the sheets cool against my skin, and looked at her. She was still asleep, her dark hair fanned out on the pillow, looking peaceful, like none of it mattered to her. I wanted to shake her awake, demand answers, ask why she let her family treat me like that, but I didn't. Instead, I got up, splashed water on my face, and told myself today would be different. I'd make it different. I pulled on a shirt and jeans, grabbed my phone, and headed down to the lobby, figuring I'd catch them at breakfast and start fresh. The resort was alive with morning light, the smell of coffee and salt water mixing in the air. I texted Clarissa as I walked, "Hey, where you at, breakfast?" No reply. I shrugged it off. She's slow to wake up sometimes, and kept going, my sneakers quiet on the polished floors. When I got to the hotel cafe, I spotted them right away. There they were, all four of them, sitting at a round table by the window, sunlight pouring in, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Gregory was tearing into a stack of pancakes, Marilyn sipping her coffee, Nora scrolling her phone between bites of toast. Clarissa was there too, smiling at something her mom said, her plate half empty. My chest tightened. They were halfway through their meal, and not a single spot was set for me. No extra chair, no napkin, nothing. I stood there for a second just watching, feeling like I'd walked into someone else's life. I cleared my throat and stepped closer. "Morning," I said, forcing a grin, hoping they'd wave me over. Gregory glanced up, his fork paused midair, and gave me a look like I'd interrupted something important. "Oh," he said, "we figured you'd find us." That was it. No apology, no grab a seat, just that flat, careless tone. Marilyn kept her eyes on her mug, stirring it even though there was nothing left to stir. Nora didn't even look up, and Clarissa, she flicked her gaze to me for half a second, then dropped it back to her plate, poking at some scrambled eggs. I stood there, hands in my pockets, waiting for something, anything, to make this feel normal. Nothing came. "Right," I said, nodding like it made sense, even though it didn't. I pulled out a chair anyway, the scrape of it loud against the floor, and sat down. The waiter hurried over, looking confused, and asked if I wanted a menu. "Yeah, sure," I muttered, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. They went right back to talking, some story about a cousin I'd never met, while I sat there, the odd man out, staring at a menu I didn't even want. I ordered coffee and a bagel, just to have something to do with my hands. The whole time, I kept sneaking looks at Clarissa, waiting for her to say something, to include me, to act like my wife. She didn't. She just nodded along to her dad's booming voice, laughing when Nora chimed in with a sarcastic little jab. I sipped my coffee when it came, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth. I tried leaning forward. "What's the plan today?" I asked, forcing another smile. Gregory didn't even pause, just kept chewing. Marilyn gave a vague, "Oh, we'll see," and turned back to her daughter. Clarissa shrugged, actually shrugged, and said, "We'll figure it out." That was it. No invite, no details, just a brush-off. I leaned back, my jaw tight, and stared out the window at the ocean rolling in. It hit me then, sitting there with my cold bagel and their empty plates, that this wasn't a one-time thing. This was how it was going to be. I looked at Clarissa again, her face soft and familiar, and waited for her to meet my eyes. She didn't. When they finished, they all stood up, stretching and chatting about heading to the beach, or maybe a boat ride. No one asked if I was coming. I stayed in my seat, watching them file out, their voices fading down the hall. My phone buzzed, finally, a text from her. "Meet us later if you want." If I want, like it was my choice to be left out. I set the phone down, finished my coffee in one long gulp, and stared at the empty table they'd left behind. That's when she caught up to me in the hall, her flip-flops slapping the floor. "Hey," she said, casual as anything. "Don't take it personal, okay? It's just their way. Their way. Like that was supposed to make it fine, like I should just smile and nod while they treated me like I didn't matter." I looked at her, searching her face for something. Guilt, maybe, or an apology. But all I got was that lazy shrug again. "Sure," I said, my voice low, "no big deal." But it was a huge deal, and I could feel it sinking into me, heavy and cold. I walked back to the room alone, the sound of the waves outside doing nothing to calm the storm kicking up inside me. This wasn't just their way. This was a line in the sand, and I was on the wrong side of it. I woke up the next morning, determined to shake off the mess from yesterday. The sun was barely up, painting the room in soft gold through the curtains, and I told myself today was a clean slate. I'd get up early, catch them before they could leave me behind again, and make this trip work. Clarissa was still out cold next to me, her breathing slow and steady, so I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on a t-shirt and shorts, and grabbed my phone. I shot her a quick text heading to the cafe, "Meet me for breakfast." Then I headed down. The resort was quiet this early, just a few staff wiping down tables and the faint hum of a vacuum somewhere. I liked it like this, calm and empty, no one to dodge or explain myself to. I got to the cafe and picked a table near the window, the same spot they'd been at yesterday, figuring they'd show up soon. I ordered a coffee and sat there, watching the waves roll in, sipping slowly while I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. My phone stayed silent, no buzz, no text back from Clarissa. I checked it anyway, just in case I'd missed something. Nothing. The coffee went cold in my hands, and I started to feel that same twist in my stomach from last night, but I pushed it down. They'd come, I told myself. They had to. Finally, I heard voices, Gregory's loud bark of a laugh, Marilyn's softer tone trailing behind. I looked up, and there they were, walking into the cafe like they owned the place. Clarissa was with them, her hair tied back, sunglasses perched on her head, smiling at something Nora said. They didn't even glance my way, just headed straight to a table across the room. My heart sank as I watched them sit down, the waiter rushing over with menus for 4 chairs, no empty spot, no wave to call me over, nothing. I sat there, frozen, my mug halfway to my mouth, watching them settle in like I wasn't even there. Gregory said something, and they all laughed, Clarissa too, her head tipping back like she didn't have a care in the world. I set the mug down, harder than I meant to, the clink loud enough to make a guy at the next table glance over. "Hey!" I called out, standing up, my voice cutting through the chatter. They turned, all 4 of them, like they'd just noticed me for the first time. Gregory raised an eyebrow, his fork already digging into a plate of bacon that must have come fast. "Oh, you're up," he said, like it was some big surprise. "We figured you'd find us." There it was again, that same line, like it excused everything. Marilyn gave me a tight little smile, then went back to buttering her toast. Nora scrolled her phone, ignoring me completely. Clarissa met my eyes for a second, then looked away, picking up her coffee like it was more interesting than me. I grabbed my chair and dragged it over, the legs scraping the floor, and plopped it down at the end of their table. "Mind if I join?" I said, keeping my tone light, even though my hands were clenched under the table. No one answered, but Gregory shrugged, so I took it as a yes. The waiter hustled over, looking flustered, and handed me a menu. I didn't even open it, just told him to bring me whatever they were having. I sat there trying to catch up, listening to them talk about some boat trip they'd done years ago, before I was around. I nodded along, waiting for a gap to jump in, but every time I opened my mouth, someone else filled the space. Gregory with a loud opinion, Marilyn with a quiet aside, Nora with a giggle. Clarissa didn't say much, just sipped her coffee and picked at her eggs, her eyes anywhere but on me. My food came, bacon, eggs, toast, and I ate it mechanically, chewing through the silence they built around me. It was like I was invisible, a ghost at their table, and the more I sat there, the louder it got in my head. I tried again, leaning forward. "So, what's on for today?" I asked, forcing a smile. Gregory didn't even look up, just mumbled, "We'll see," between bites. Marilyn nodded vaguely and Nora didn't react at all. Clarissa gave me that same quick glance, then nothing. I pushed my plate away, half-eaten, and leaned back, my jaw tight. They finished up, chatting about heading to the pool or maybe the beach, tossing ideas around like I wasn't sitting right there. When they stood up, stretching and grabbing their stuff, I stayed put, watching them. "You coming?" Clarissa said finally, her voice flat, like it didn't matter either way. "Yeah," I said, standing, but they were already moving, walking off without waiting. I followed, a few steps behind, my hands stuffed in my pockets, the distance between us growing with every step. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, her text still unanswered on the screen. That's when it hit me. I could have screamed in that cafe, yelled until my throat gave out, and they wouldn't have cared. They'd have kept eating, kept laughing, kept pretending I wasn't there. I tossed the phone onto the nightstand and ran a hand through my hair, my chest heavy. This wasn't just them being rude. This was them telling me I didn't belong, and Clarissa wasn't doing a damn thing to stop it. I decided right then I was done trying. If they wanted me out, fine. I'd figure out how to deal with it my own way. I woke up the next day with a weight pressing down on me, like the air itself was heavier than it should have been. The room was quiet, Clarissa still asleep beside me, her breathing soft and even, like nothing in the world could touch her. I didn't feel that peace. Not after yesterday. Not after sitting at that cafe table like some stray they'd reluctantly let tag along. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, the fan spinning lazy circles above me, and decided I wasn't chasing them anymore. If they didn't want me around, I'd stop begging for a seat at their table. I got up, pulled on a pair of shorts and a faded t-shirt, and slipped out without waking her. The resort was waking up too, staff rolling carts down the halls, the faint smell of fresh bread drifting from somewhere. I grabbed a coffee from the lobby and sat outside, the morning sun warm on my face, the ocean stretching out in front of me. I tried to enjoy it, to let the sound of the waves wash away the mess in my head, but it didn't work. All I could think about was how they'd left me out, again and again. Breakfast, sure, but I had a feeling it didn't stop there. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, scrolling through Nora's feed just to see. There it was, pictures from yesterday afternoon, all of them on a sailboat, grinning against a backdrop of blue water and sky. Gregory with his arm around Clarissa, Marilyn shielding her eyes from the sun, Nora posing at the helm. Not a single shot with me in it, not a mention that I even existed. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the like button, then swiped it away. They'd gone sailing without me. No text, no heads up, nothing. I checked Clarissa's page too. Same deal. More pics, more smiles, more proof I wasn't part of their little world. My coffee tasted bitter now, even with the sugar I'd dumped in it, and I set it down on the table, my hands curling into fists. I thought about texting her, asking why, but what was the point? She'd just shrug it off, like she always did. I stayed out there for a while, watching people come and go, couples holding hands, families chasing kids around, feeling more alone than I ever had. By the time I went back to the room, Clarissa was up, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. She didn't look at me when I walked in, just kept pulling the brush through her dark strands, like it was the most important thing in the world. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You guys have fun yesterday?" She paused, just for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, it was nice. Sailing was good. That was it." "No sorry, no explanation, just it was nice." I leaned against the doorframe, watching her, waiting for more. Nothing came. "Would have been cool to join," I said, crossing my arms. She turned then, finally meeting my eyes, and I saw that flicker of annoyance I knew too well. "You could have come if you wanted," she said, like it was my fault. "We didn't know where you were." I laughed, short and sharp, because that was a lie, and we both knew it. "You didn't tell me," I shot back, stepping closer. "No one said a word about sailing, or the vineyard tour I saw on Nora's story. You just left." She rolled her eyes, setting the brush down with a little clack. "You're being sensitive," she said, her voice flat. "It's just how my family is. They like to stick to their traditions, okay? It's not about you." I stared at her, my jaw tight, feeling the heat creep up my neck. Traditions. That was her excuse. Like it made sense to ditch your husband without a heads up, to post pictures all over the internet while I sat around wondering where the hell everyone went. "Right," I said, nodding slowly. "Traditions." She turned back to the mirror, picking up her brush again, like the conversation was over. I wanted to yell, to grab her by the shoulders and make her see how messed up this was, but I didn't. I just stood there watching her, the woman I'd promised my life to, acting like I was the problem for wanting to be included. "So what's today?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Anything I should know about?" She shrugged, God, that shrug again, and said, "I don't know, we'll figure it out, maybe the beach." No invite, no plan, just more of the same. I took a deep breath, letting it out slow, and smiled at her. Not a happy smile, but a calm one, quiet, like I'd figured something out. "Perfect," I said, my voice low, because I have my own way too. She didn't catch it, didn't even look up, just kept brushing her hair like nothing had changed. But something had. I walked over to the window, staring out at the ocean, my mind racing. I'd been playing their game, sitting alone at dinner, chasing them to breakfast, scrolling through their pictures like some outsider begging for a crumb. No more. If they had their traditions, fine, I'd start my own. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I could feel it building inside me, a spark of something hard and steady. I turned back to her, watching her fuss with her hair, and kept that smile on my face. "Yeah," I said, mostly to myself, my way. She didn't hear me, or if she did, she didn't care. But that was okay. She'd figure it out soon enough. I lay awake that night, long after Clarissa's breathing settled into that slow, deep rhythm of sleep. The room was dark. Just a sliver of moonlight slipping through the curtains, casting shadows on the wall. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her shrug, her "it's just how they are," the way she let her family push me out without a second thought. It played on a loop in my head, each memory sharper than the last. Gregory's smug voice, Marilyn's blank stare, Nora's little smirk, and Clarissa doing nothing. I turned onto my side, staring at her outline under the blanket, and felt something shift inside me. I wasn't mad anymore, not the hot, loud kind of mad. This was colder, quieter, like a decision I didn't even have to argue with myself about. I was done waiting for them to let me in. If they wanted to play their game, I'd play mine. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, and grabbed my laptop from the desk. The screen glowed bright in the dark, stinging my eyes as I sat on the couch by the window. I pulled up every reservation I'd made for this trip, everything I'd put on my card under my name because I'd wanted to treat them, to show I could be part of this family. The resort rooms, the car rental, the fancy dinners, the spa day Marilyn wouldn't shut up about. The yacht tour Gregory kept bragging he'd booked. It was all mine to give, and now it was mine to take away. I started with the rooms. 3 clicks, and their suite was gone, canceled without a trace. The confirmation email popped up, reservation terminated. I didn't hesitate, moved on to the car rental next. Another few clicks, and the SUV we'd been using was off the books, set to be picked up by the agency at dawn. I felt a little jolt in my chest, not guilt, but something alive. Like I was finally doing something instead of just taking it. The dinners, those overpriced meals they'd eaten without me, canceled. The spa day Marilyn had been gushing about, with her massages and facials, erased. I pictured her face when she found out. that tight little frown she'd get, and it almost made me smile. The yacht tour was last, Gregory's big prize, the one he'd been yapping about since we got here. I hovered over the cancel button for a second, imagining him standing at the dock, red-faced and confused, then clicked. Gone. Every single thing they'd taken for granted, every plan they'd made without me, wiped out in under 10 minutes. I wasn't done yet, though. I'd brought a portable Wi-Fi router for the trip, my name, my account, my password. I logged in, changed it to something they'd never guess, and disconnected every device but mine. Let them figure out how to post their precious pictures now. By the time I shut the laptop, the clock on the nightstand said 3:47 in the morning. The room was still, Clarissa hadn't moved, and the ocean outside hummed like it was cheering me on. I leaned back on the couch, my hands behind my head, and let out a long, slow breath. It felt good, better than I'd expected. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was in control. I crawled back into bed, the sheets cool against my skin, and closed my eyes, knowing sunrise would bring a reckoning I'd set in motion. When I woke up, the room was bright, and Clarissa was already in the shower, the water running loud behind the closed door. I got up, packed a small bag, just my clothes, my wallet, my keys, and checked my phone. No alerts yet, no panicked calls. They wouldn't notice until they tried to use something I'd taken away. I grabbed the car keys from the dresser, the ones for the rental I'd canceled, and headed out. The hallway was quiet, the resort still waking up, and I made it to the parking lot without seeing a soul. The SUV sat there, gleaming in the morning light, and I tossed my bag in the back. I drove off, not looking back, the engine humming under me as I left Cape Haven behind. 2 towns over, I found a new place, a high-end resort with a view that put ours to shame. I booked a solo suite, handed over my card, and walked into a room that was mine alone. No Gregory, no Marilyn, no Clarissa shrugging me off. I ordered breakfast, eggs, bacon, a stack of pancakes with extra syrup, and sat by the window, watching the ocean roll in. The first bite was heaven, the coffee hot and strong, and I felt lighter than I had in days. My phone buzzed then, Clarissa's name on the screen. I let it ring, took another bite, and watched it go to voicemail. A minute later it buzzed again, Gregory this time, then Nora. I didn't answer. When Clarissa called back, I picked up, leaning back in my chair, the sun warm on my face. "Where are you?" she said, her voice tight, cracking a little. "Everything's gone. The rooms, the car, everything." I chewed slowly, savoring the pancake, then swallowed. "I'm enjoying my vacation," I said, calm as anything, my way. She started to say something, but I hung up, set the phone down, and took another sip of coffee. This was it, my tradition now, and I wasn't going back. I sat there in my new suite, the tray of breakfast still warm in front of me, the ocean stretching out beyond the window like a promise I'd finally kept to myself. The pancakes were gone, the coffee cup half empty, and I felt this strange calm settle over me, like I'd shed something heavy I didn't even know I'd been carrying. The phone kept buzzing on the table. Clarissa, Gregory, Nora, one after the other, like a swarm of bees I'd kicked loose. I didn't pick up, not yet. I wanted them to feel it first, to wake up to the mess I'd made of their perfect little trip. I pictured Gregory stomping around the lobby, barking at some poor desk clerk about the canceled rooms, Marilyn clutching her purse like it could save her spa day, Nora, whining about the Wi-Fi, and Clarissa, my wife, the one who was supposed to stand by me, scrambling to figure out where I'd gone. I let the calls stack up, the voicemails piling in, and leaned back in my chair, the sun warming my face. This was my morning now, and I wasn't sharing it with anyone. After a while, I played the first voicemail, Clarissa's voice sharp and shaky spilling out of the speaker. "Where are you? The hotel says our rooms are canceled. The car's gone. We don't know what's happening. Call me back, please." I deleted it, moved to the next one. Gregory this time, his tone all gravel and rage. "What the hell did you do, you little punk? Fix this now." I smirked, deleted that one too. Nora's was short, just a whiny, "This isn't funny, where's the Wi-Fi?" I didn't bother saving it. They kept coming, one after another, a chorus of panic I'd orchestrated with a few clicks the night before. I finished my coffee, letting the bitterness linger on my tongue, and decided it was time to answer. Clarissa's name flashed up again, and I picked up, keeping my voice steady, casual, like I was ordering room service. "Hey," I said, swirling the last sip in my cup. "Where are you?" she snapped, her words tumbling out fast. "Everything's gone. The rooms, the car, the dinner reservations." "What did you do?" I set the cup down, leaned forward, and took a slow breath. "I'm enjoying my vacation," I said, letting each word hang there. My way. There was a pause, a long one, and I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven, like she couldn't decide whether to yell or cry. "What's that supposed to mean?" she finally said, her voice cracking. It means I'm done, I told her, calm as the sea outside my window. You wanted your traditions? Fine. I've got mine now. I hung up before she could answer, tossed the phone onto the table, and stood up to stretch. The suite was quiet, just the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant crash of waves. I walked to the balcony, slid the glass door open, and stepped out. The air was warm, salty, and clean, and I leaned on the railing, looking out at the water. This was mine, my spot, my peace, my rules. I didn't know what they were doing back in Cape Haven, and for the first time, I didn't care. I went back inside, grabbed my wallet, and headed down to the resort's restaurant. It was lunchtime now, the place buzzing with people, couples laughing, kids running around, waiters weaving through with trays. I took a table by the window, ordered a burger and a beer, and watched the world go by. My phone buzzed again, Clarissa texting this time. "This isn't funny. Where are you? We need the car." I ignored it, took a bite of the burger when it came, the meat juicy and hot, and washed it down with a cold gulp of beer. Another text, "Please just tell us what's going on." I didn't reply. Let them figure it out. They'd realize soon enough that every reservation, every little luxury they'd been counting on, was tied to me, and I'd cut the strings. I finished my meal slow, savoring it, then ordered a slice of cheesecake, just because I could. The phone kept lighting up, Gregory now, with a string of curses I didn't bother reading. Then Clarissa again, her tone shifting from mad to desperate. "We're stuck, okay? Tell me where you are." I wiped my hands on a napkin, leaned back, and typed out a single word, "Send good." Sent it, then turned the phone face down. I wasn't going back, not to the resort, not to their table, not to the life where I was the guy they forgot. I paid the bill, left a big tip, and walked out into the afternoon sun. The new resort had a pool, a sleek blue rectangle surrounded by lounge chairs, and I grabbed one, kicking off my shoes and lying back. The water sparkled, kids splashed at the shallow end, and I closed my eyes, letting the heat soak into me. This was my vacation now. No chasing, no waiting, no pretending I fit where I didn't. My phone buzzed one more time, Clarissa's voice in another voicemail, softer now, almost pleading. "I don't know what you're doing, but we can talk about this. Just come back." I deleted it without a second thought. I wasn't talking, I wasn't fixing, I was done. The sun climbed higher, the day stretched out ahead of me, and I felt something I hadn't in a long time, free. They could panic all they wanted. I'd started this fire, and I was going to let it burn. I woke up the next morning in my new suite, the sheets crisp and cool against my skin, the sound of the ocean drifting in through the cracked balcony door. It was early, the sky still soft with dawn, and I lay there for a minute, letting the quiet sink in. Yesterday felt like a dream. The calls, the texts, the sound of Clarissa's voice cracking over the line. But it was real, and I'd done it. I'd pulled the plug on their whole trip, left them scrambling, and now I was here, 2 towns away, starting over on my terms. I got up, made coffee with the little machine in the room, and sat by the window, watching the ocean wake up with the day. My phone was still off, and I left it that way, not ready to dive back into their mess. I figured they were still at that motel, stewing in their own chaos, and that was fine by me. I finished my coffee, showered, and headed down to the resort's cafe for breakfast. Pancakes again, because why not? The place was buzzing with people, families laughing, couples sharing plates, and I took a table by myself, content to watch the world go by. I was halfway through my stack, syrup dripping off my fork, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it on, just to check the time, and saw it light up with a name I didn't expect, Isaac, Clarissa's cousin. I hadn't seen him on this trip, he lived a few states away. But we'd always gotten along at family stuff before. I wiped my hands on a napkin, curious, and opened the text. "Dude," it said, "just so you know, you're not the first." I stared at it, my fork hovering over the plate, not sure what he meant. Another message came through before I could reply. They did this to Clarissa's ex too. Same crap, pushing him out, testing him, seeing if he'd break. "She never told you?" My stomach dropped, the pancakes turning heavy in my gut. I set the fork down, my hands resting on the table, and read it again. Her ex, fiancé, some guy named Paul she'd dated years before me, who I'd only heard about in passing. She'd said they split because he couldn't handle her family, and I'd never pushed for more. Now Isaac's words were sinking in, sharp and cold, like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was missing. I texted back, keeping it short. "What do you mean?" He replied fast. "It's their thing, man. Gregory and Marilyn, they've got this sick tradition. They freeze out the new guy, make him feel like dirt, see if he'll stick around. Clarissa knows. She's seen it before." I leaned back in my chair, my coffee going cold, and let that hit me. Clarissa knew. She'd watched her parents pull this on Paul, isolating him, ignoring him, treating him like he didn't belong. And she'd let them do it to me too. All those shrugs, all those "it's just their way" excuses, weren't just her brushing it off. She'd been part of it, letting it happen, maybe even waiting to see if I'd crack like he did. I sat there, staring out the window at the waves, my mind racing. Isaac texted again. Paul bailed after a year. Guess they thought you'd do the same. Sorry, man, thought you knew. I didn't reply, just set the phone down and pushed my plate away. The cafe noise faded around me, kids laughing, dishes clinking, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud and steady in my ears. She'd known. That was the truth that cut deepest. Not just that her family was awful, but that she'd stood by and let them test me like I was some lab rat in their twisted game. I thought about the dinner, the breakfast, the sailing trip. Every time they'd left me out, she'd been there, saying nothing, doing nothing. I'd blamed Gregory's loud mouth, Marilyn's cold shoulder, Nora's smirks. But Clarissa was the one who'd let it happen. My wife. The woman I'd built a life with. I stood up, left cash on the table, and walked out, the sun hot on my face as I headed back to my room. I needed to think, to let this settle. Back in the suite, I sat on the balcony, the ocean air sharp and salty, and replayed it all. Isaac's words were the crack in the mirror. Everything I'd been holding together shattered, and I could see it clear now. This wasn't just a bad trip, this was a pattern, a sick little ritual they'd perfected, and Clarissa had signed off on it. I didn't know Paul, didn't know how he'd broken, but I wasn't him. I hadn't just walked away. I'd fought back, canceled their world out from under them. Maybe that's why they were panicking now, why Clarissa's texts had gone from mad to begging. They didn't expect me to push back. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through her messages again. We can fix this, I'm sorry, just talk to me. And felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold, hard clarity. She'd known, and she'd let me twist in it, waiting to see if I'd measure up. I didn't know her anymore, didn't know anything. I tossed the phone onto the table, leaned back, and watched the waves roll in. This was the truth, ugly and raw, and it changed everything. They'd wanted to see if I'd break. Well, I hadn't, and now they'd have to deal with the pieces. I woke up the next morning with Isaac's text still burning in my head. The truth about Clarissa and her family sitting heavy on my chest like a rock I couldn't push off. The sun was up, streaming through the balcony door, and the ocean outside was calm, but inside me it was anything but. I'd spent half the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of this trip, every shrug, every excuse she'd thrown my way. She'd known her parents were testing me, known they'd done it before, and she'd let me walk right into it. I wasn't just mad at her family anymore. I was mad at her, at us, at the whole damn thing I'd thought we had. I got up, made coffee, and stood by the window, the mug hot in my hands. My phone was quiet now, no new calls or texts since last night's flood. They were probably licking their wounds at that motel, figuring out their next move. Good. Let them sweat. I wasn't hiding anymore, though. I was done running from this. I wanted them to see what they'd lost, to face what I'd done. So I texted Clarissa, "Meet me at the Coastal Inn conference room, 2 in the afternoon. Bring your family. No explanation, no please, just that." She replied fast, "Okay, we'll be there." I set the phone down, finished my coffee, and got ready. I showered, pulled on a clean shirt and jeans, and drove over early, the rental car humming under me as I left my new resort behind. The Coastal Inn was halfway between Cape Haven and where I was now, a neutral spot, small and simple, with a row of meeting rooms off the lobby. I got there at 1:30, booked the room with cash, and waited. The space was plain, a long table, a few chairs, a whiteboard on the wall. And I sat at the head, my bag in front of me, papers I'd printed that morning spread out like a battle plan. They walked in at 2:05, all 4 of them, looking rougher than I'd ever seen. Gregory's face was red, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. Marilyn's hair was flat, her eyes puffy. Nora slouched in behind them, her phone clutched tight, probably still dead from no Wi-Fi. Clarissa came last, her jaw tight, her gaze flicking to me, then away. They sat down across from me, the table a wall between us, and nobody said a word at first. I leaned back, hands folded, and let the silence stretch. "What's this about?" Gregory finally barked, his voice loud in the small room. I didn't flinch, just reached into my bag and pulled out the stack of cancellation receipts. I slid them across the table, one by one. "This," I said, tapping the first sheet, "is your resort suite. Cancelled." I slid the next one over. The car rental, gone. Another. "Your yacht tour, Gregory." I kept going, dinner reservations, Maryland's spa day. Every little piece of their trip I'd torched, until the papers fanned out in front of them. Marilyn snatched one up, her lips thinning as she read it. "You did this," she snapped, her voice sharp. "All of it?" I nodded, slow and steady. "Every bit. My card, my name, my call." Gregory slammed a fist on the table, the receipts jumping. "You little—" he started, but I cut him off, pulling out my phone. I played Clarissa's voicemails first, the ones from yesterday, her voice going from mad to pleading, "Where are you? Everything's gone." Then I played Isaac's, his calm tone spilling the truth. They did this to her ex, too. Clarissa knows. The room went dead quiet, the air thick with it. Clarissa's face went pale, her hands gripping the table's edge. Nora stared at her, eyes wide. Marilyn turned to her daughter, mouth open, but nothing came out. Gregory just glared at me, his knuckles white. "You let this happen," I said, looking straight at Clarissa, my voice low but hard. "You watched them humiliate me, dinner, breakfast, sailing, all of it, and you said nothing. You knew they'd done it before, and you let them do it to me." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes dropping to the table. "It's not—" She started, but I shook my head. "Don't," I said. "Isaac told me everything. Your sick little tradition, seeing if I'd break." "I didn't break, Clarissa." I walked away. Gregory lunged forward, his chair scraping. "You're overreacting, you punk. This is nothing." I stood up, matching his height across the table. "Nothing," I said, my voice rising for the first time. "You shoved me out, treated me like I didn't exist, and I pointed at Clarissa, let it happen." "That's not nothing. That's a choice," Marilyn cut in, her tone icy. "You've made your point. What now?" I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and looked at them. Really looked at them. Gregory fuming, Marilyn rigid, Nora shrinking, Clarissa silent. "Now," I said, "you don't fix a home that was never built for you. You leave it behind." Clarissa's head snapped up, her eyes wet. "We can fix this," she said, her voice small. "Please." I shook my head again, stepping toward the door. "No," I told her. "You don't get it. I'm not fixing anything. I'm done." I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, their voices rising in a muffled mess. I didn't stick around to hear. The parking lot was hot, the sun glaring off the asphalt, and I got in the car, my hands steady on the wheel. I didn't look back as I drove away, the coastal inn shrinking in the rearview. They could keep their traditions, their tests, their broken little family. I'd given them the truth, laid it out raw, and now I was free of it. The road stretched ahead, and for the first time in days I felt like I could breathe. I drove away from the coastal inn with the windows down, the wind rushing past me, carrying the salt of the ocean and the weight of what I'd just done. The confrontation was still fresh. Gregory's red face, Marilyn's icy glare, Nora's wide eyes, Clarissa's shaky voice. But it didn't cling to me like I thought it would. It was over, done, and I'd said what I needed to say. The road stretched out ahead, empty and open, and I felt lighter with every mile I put between me and them. I didn't know where I was going yet, just that I wasn't going back, not to Cape Haven, not to that life. I stopped at a gas station an hour later, filled up the tank, and grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler inside. The clerk barely looked at me, just rang me up and handed me my change, and I liked it that way. No questions, no explanations. I sat in the car for a minute, the engine idling, and checked my phone. A few texts from Clarissa. "Please, let's talk." I didn't mean for this. I deleted them without replying. Gregory had sent one too, a string of insults I didn't bother reading. I turned the phone off, tossed it into the passenger seat, and pulled back onto the highway. The sun was dipping low now, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, and I kept driving until I hit a small town I didn't know the name of. It had a diner, a motel, a few shops, nothing fancy, just quiet. I checked into the motel, a single room with a lumpy bed and a TV that probably didn't work, and dropped my bag by the door. It wasn't the luxury of the resort, but it was mine, and that was enough. I walked to the diner next door, ordered a burger and fries, and ate alone at a corner booth, the hum of the jukebox filling the space. The food was greasy, simple, perfect. I didn't need anything more. That night, I slept hard, the kind of sleep that comes when you've let go of something big. The next day, I drove back to the city, back to our house, hers now, I guess, and started the paperwork. I called a lawyer I knew from work, filed for separation, and got it rolling before she could even try to stop me. She called a few times over the next week, left voicemails I didn't listen to, sent texts I didn't answer. Marilyn tried too, her messages sharp and demanding, like she could guilt me into coming back. Even Gregory fired off a few, mostly threats and curses, but they didn't touch me. I was done letting them in. A week later, I got a text from Isaac. They're imploding. Clarissa moved out. Gregory won't speak to her. I stared at it, the words sinking in, and typed back. Good. That was it. No long reply, no questions, just that. I didn't care about the details. Didn't need to know how their little world was falling apart. It wasn't my problem anymore. Over the next few months, I kept moving. Found a new place, a small apartment downtown with a view of the river. Nothing fancy, but mine. I sold the house, split the money with Clarissa through the lawyers, and signed the divorce papers 6 months later. She didn't fight it, didn't show up to contest anything, just let it happen. I heard from a mutual friend she'd moved to another state, started over somewhere new, but I didn't ask where. I didn't need to know. The day the divorce was final, I sat on my new balcony with a beer, the river glinting under the afternoon sun, and felt the last piece of that old life slip away. It wasn't just a marriage I'd walked away from, it was a whole messed-up legacy. A family built on control and silence and cruelty, and I'd burned my way out of it. I thought about Cape Haven sometimes, the resort, that first night at the dinner table, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a story now, something that happened to a guy I used to be. I started small traditions of my own. Friday nights at a bar down the street, Sunday mornings with coffee and the paper, trips to the coast when I felt like it. No one told me where to sit. No one left me out. My phone buzzed less those days. Just friends checking in, work stuff, normal things. Isaac texted once more, months later, "You good?" I wrote back, "Yeah, better than ever." And I meant it. I'd taken their test, their twisted little game, and turned it on its head. They'd wanted to see if I'd break, but I didn't. I walked away, built something new, something that fit me. The river kept flowing outside my window, steady and sure, and I leaned back in my chair, the beer cold in my hand. This was peace. Not the fake kind I'd chased with Clarissa's family, but the real stuff, hard-won and quiet. I didn't just leave them behind. I left the version of me who'd put up with it. And now, every day was mine, on my terms, free by the fire I'd set myself.